In our headlines on this Tuesday, July 29th, here in South Korea. President Lee Jae-myung highlights yet again the importance of promoting a corporate culture of workplace safety to fight fatalities within the working environment. And Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul departs for the U.S. today for tariff talks as the Trump administration speaks of import duties between 15% and 20% for American trade partners who have yet to hammer out bilateral deals with Washington. Meanwhile, government officials and ruling party lawmakers are turning toward higher taxation to tackle the shortfall in tax revenue, and accordingly, corporate tax may return to 25% from the current 24%. The Lee Jae-myung administration has pledged to prevent the loss of life at workplaces in an unprecedented live broadcast of the entire cabinet discussion on the matter. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
Safety should be a basic duty, not a financial burden. Just days after visiting a bread factory where multiple workers were killed on the job, President Lee Jae-myung at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday doubled down on his pledge to eliminate what he calls regressive industrial accidents.
똑같은 장소에서 똑같은 사고가 발생하는 거는 똑같은 방식으로 특히 사망하는 거는 충분히 예상할 수 있는 일인데 이 예상할 수 있는 일들을 방어하지 않고 사고가 나는 거는 결국 죽음을 용인하는 거죠. 아주 심하게 얘기하면 법률적 용어로 미필적 고의에 의한 살인 아닙니까?
In a first for any South Korean administration, the president ordered the entire cabinet discussion on the matter to be broadcast live.
The president said measures to prevent industrial accidents must be shared openly. The frequency and scope of such disclosures could be expanded.
A range of ideas were proposed to make this year the turning point in ending workplace deaths.
We'll pursue measures like punitive damages, restrictions on who can bid for government-led projects, and suspending operations. We must hold those with real decision-making power accountable.
When major accidents happen, listed companies face lower ESG ratings, investor pullback, or restricted lending. We'll review how these penalties are applied and look to strengthen them.
The focus was on breaking the perception among some employers that skipping safety measures is cost-saving.
산업안전보건법 각 조항의 안전조치를 정해놓고 그걸 위반했을 때 과태료 최소 5만 원, 최대 5천만 원이라는데 이렇게 하면 지킬 이유가 없죠.
필요성을 제고하겠습니다.
이거를 어떻게 개정할지 이것도 한번 검토를 하고 논의를 한번 해보죠.
Wrapping up, the president asked each ministry to take swift action, whether drafting new laws, adjusting budgets, or visiting work sites.
So with most of his cabinet positions now filled, President Lee stressed the need for cross-ministerial coordination to tackle pending issues and also hinted that cabinet meetings may be held more than once a week to speed up progress. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
At the Parliament, confirmation hearings for the nominees to lead the culture as well as land ministries took place today. Our National Assembly correspondent Shin Ha-young covers the latest sessions.
The National Assembly held confirmation hearings on Tuesday, continuing its review of nominees for Lee Jae-myung's first cabinet, this time focusing on his picks for land and culture ministers. During the hearing of the nominee for Culture, Sports and Tourism Minister Choi Wi-young, the current CEO of travel platform Noel Universe emphasized his commitment to materializing President Lee's vision of a K-culture market worth 300 trillion won, around $215 billion and attracting 30 million inbound tourists.
Culture is a part of the economy that is a key to international competitiveness. I will help industries such as movies and games overcome challenges and support local content creators and streaming services to help them succeed worldwide.
Choi also said he would develop a new K-tourism strategy to turn the global popularity of Korean culture into visits to regions across the country. To prepare for the growing use of AI, he pledged to support content innovation and help build AI training data that reflects Korea's history and culture. On the same day, Kim Yoon-duk, the nominee for Land, Infrastructure and Transport Minister and a three-term lawmaker of the ruling Democratic Party, pledged to quickly roll out a plan to boost housing supply.
I will increase housing supply in prime locations, such as near subway stations, by using available land and old public facilities. Redevelopment and reconstruction projects will also be promoted with a focus on balancing public and private interests.
Kim also emphasized his commitment to achieving balanced regional growth, saying it is not a choice but a matter of survival. He noted that while local areas are struggling with an economic slowdown and rising unsold homes, housing prices in Seoul and the capital region are soaring, adding that the problem can only be solved through balanced regional growth. 신하영, Arirang News.
Staying at the National Assembly, government officials and ruling party lawmakers are turning toward higher taxation to tackle the shortfall in tax revenue. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has details.
The South Korean government and the ruling party have agreed to raise the country's top corporate tax rate to 25%, reversing a cut introduced by the previous administration. The decision was made on Tuesday during a policy consultation meeting at the National Assembly as part of ongoing efforts to finalize the 2025 tax reform framework. This increases the rate by 1 percentage point from the current 24% as set back in 2022. The two sides also plan to tighten capital gains tax rules by lowering the threshold for major shareholders. Currently, only those holding over 5 billion won, roughly $3.6 million in a single listed stock are taxed. Under the new plan, that threshold would be reduced to 1 billion won or just under $720,000. Officials say the changes aim to restore tax equity and rebuild the nation's revenue base, with the Democratic Party having criticized the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's previous cuts as benefiting the wealthy.
We'll correct the tax system to fix the revenue collapse and fiscal crisis. The Treasury is empty. We are buried in debt. In just 2 years, corporate tax revenues have dropped by 41 trillion won. For the first time ever, income taxes from workers have surpassed those from corporations. This level of shortfall, year after year, is not just emptying the state coffers, it's shaking the foundation of government operations.
Meanwhile, debate continues over a separate proposal to apply lower flat-rate taxation to dividend income. While the government argues it would encourage corporate payouts and boost the stock market, some ruling party politicians warn it could disproportionately benefit high-net-worth investors. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Korea's top economic officials are racing against time to seal a deal with their American counterparts prior to this coming Friday's deadline on the pause in country-specific U.S. tariffs. Our Park Jun-an has the latest.
High-level South Korean officials are going all out as they engage in trade talks, crisscrossing the globe to negotiate with their U.S. counterparts, reflecting Seoul's determination to mitigate the economic impact of potential reciprocal tariffs of 25%. On Tuesday, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance Ko Yoon-chul flew to Washington to continue negotiations with the U.S., saying he will do his utmost to secure a deal.
We will do our best to reach a mutually beneficial deal for both South Korea and the United States, with our national interests at the core.
South Korea's trade delegation, led by Industry Minister Kim Jong-un and Trade Minister Yo-jong has pursued relentless talks following U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Tier Ambassador Jamieson Greer from Washington, D.C. to New York and even to Scotland, where they met during President Trump's visit there.
Well, the South Koreans flew to Scotland to meet with me and Ambassador Greer after dinner. I mean, think of how much they really want to get a deal done.
On July 31st, Deputy Prime Minister Ko Yoon-chul is scheduled to meet U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, while Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, who departed for Japan on Tuesday, will meet Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as both sides push to seal a comprehensive agreement. Meanwhile, Hanwha Group's Vice Chairman Kim Dong-kwan departed for Washington on Monday to support the tariff negotiations. Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong followed on Tuesday afternoon. Kim is expected to propose a shipbuilding cooperation project between the two countries, while Yi will push expanded semiconductor investment and technical collaboration on advanced AI chips in the U.S. Park Junan, Arirang News.
And U.S. trade partners who have yet to hammer out a bilateral deal with the Trump administration will see their tariffs hovering between 15% and 20%. So says Donald Trump. Our Ising-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump hinted that his administration expects to set tariffs somewhere between 15% to 20% for most of the countries that have not yet reached a trade deal. The U.S. leader made the remarks during a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland, as Trump's reciprocal tariffs, including the 25% levies on South Korea, are set to go into effect on Friday. Senior trade officials from Seoul have been busy with their negotiation efforts, but have yet to reach a deal. The Trump administration has so far agreed to bilateral trade deals with the EU, the UK, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Meanwhile, in Stockholm, top U.S. and Chinese trade officials held talks for more than 5 hours with the aim of resolving long-standing economic disputes. Washington has given an August 12th deadline to China to reach a tariff agreement after the two economic powerhouses reached preliminary deals in May and June to end their tit-for-tat tariffs. The two sides are expected to continue discussions on Tuesday. A different kind of deadline was also issued by President Trump on Monday, as he gave Russia 10 or 12 days for Russia to reach a peace deal or face tough new sanctions.
Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is.
Trump has repeatedly voiced frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin for continued attacks on Ukraine, despite his efforts to end the war. Ising-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, Monday was a mixed day for Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surrendered over 64 points, while the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained ground to close at all-time highs. Investors are awaiting big tech earnings reports, details from this week's policy meeting of the Federal Reserve, as well as key economic data such as July's employment numbers. North Korea's Kim Yo-jong suggests that dialogue between her brother Kim Jong-un and his American counterpart Donald Trump can take place if the U.S. discards its demand for denuclearization. Our Seoul covers her remarks.
On Tuesday, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of the regime's leader Kim Jong-un, said through the North State-run Korean Central News Agency that the U.S. must accept the new reality. She added that if Washington continues to cling to the past, any meeting with the North will remain only America's hope. Kim noted that the personal relationship between the U.S. President Donald Trump and the North leader Kim Jong-un is not bad. But she stressed that if the U.S. intended to use this relationship as a step toward denuclearization, it would only be regarded as mockery to the North. She said that since Trump's first term, both North Korea's nuclear capabilities and the geopolitical environment have changed dramatically. Kim warned that any attempt to deny the position of the North as a nuclear weapons state will be thoroughly rejected. She also said it would not be wise for two nuclear-armed states to move toward confrontation, suggesting that other forms of contact should be explored. Following Kim's statement, the White House has again said that President Trump remains open to talks with Kim Jong-un about denuclearization. Washington and Pyongyang held summits in Singapore in June 2018 and in Hanoi in February 2019, and later met at Panmunjom in June 2019. Following Kim's statement, South Korea's presidential office said Seoul and Washington remain open to dialogue with Pyongyang and will work closely to restore inter-Korean trust and resume U.S.-North Korea talks. Seoul, Arirang News.
And South Korea has called on North Korea to retrieve a body found last month near Gyeongju Island. An ID identified the man as Ko Sung-chul, a North Korean farm worker, with an address in Hwanghae-pukto province. With inter-Korean hotline severed, Seoul is resorting to the media to return the body via Panmunjom on August 5th. The Unification Ministry here says it's acting on humanitarian grounds. Pyongyang, for its part, has yet to respond. And U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed Washington's commitment to protecting the Korean Peninsula in accordance with the policy of peace through strength. The message was shared on Monday, a day after the 72nd anniversary of the Korean Armistice Agreement. He added that American and South Korean armies stand united today under a strong alliance though the evil of communism still exists in Asia. While acknowledging the two Koreas remain divided, he spoke of pride in being the first to cross the 38th parallel during his first term. South Korea recently hosted a group of Korean War veterans to commemorate their selflessness and sacrifice in defending democracy here on the Korean Peninsula. Kim Jong-il reports.
They were in their early 20s when they first arrived in Korea, young men in uniform sent to fight in a country they had never seen. 7 decades later, some of them have returned. 55 guests from 19 countries are taking part in South Korea's Revisit Korea, Review Korea program. Among them, 6 veterans of the Korean War, their families, and delegates from veterans associations. As part of the 6-day program, participants visited the War Memorial of Korea ahead of the official commemoration ceremony on Sunday.
And came here in 1952. Actually, my experience in the war was as a tank driver. We had to defend that place because otherwise the Chinese communists would overrun and come back to Seoul. So that was our job.
Now 91, Yamashiroya was joined by his grandson, who reflected on his grandfather's influence on their family.
He's a really strong and tough person, mentally, and he's really ingrained that in our family and everything he's done. So yeah, it's definitely an honor learning more about the culture of Korea, the history behind the war, hearing about their impact. It means a lot.
I'm so happy for the Korean people because they persevered and make a success out of themselves.
While some veterans were able to return, others could not. Sunday ceremony was held for UN Forces Participation Day, South Korea's official day to honor foreign veterans of the Korean War. U.S. Army Corporal Fred B. McGee was recognized with the country's highest military honor. His daughter accepted the medal on his behalf.
What you've done here this past week has been highly commendable. It's above and beyond anything that I expected. I just celebrate the Korean government and the Korean people for all they've done for the Korean War veterans.
The medal was presented by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, who also addressed the ceremony.
To protect the freedom and peace of the Republic of Korea, 1.98 million UN troops stood alongside the Korean people. Their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
For the veterans and families who visited this time, the trip offered not only commemoration, but connection. Kim Jong-il, Arirang News.
This year's APEC host city Gyeongju is rich in historical relics from the Shilla Kingdom. Our An Sang-jin walks us through some of these treasures.
The APEC Economic Leaders Meeting has returned to South Korea for the first time in 20 years. And this time it's going to take place in Gyeongju.
Gyeongju, where history breathes through the city, stood as the capital of the Shilla Kingdom for 1,000 years. Renowned for its deep cultural roots, what kind of traces of historical legacy can we find today?
These royal tombs are where the past rises from the earth itself. Daewon is a massive burial ground that covers more than 126,000 square meters and houses 23 tombs of Shilla royalty. Visitors can even go inside Cheonmachong, or Heavenly Horse Tomb, and see the golden accessories found in the wooden burial chamber. Nearby these royal tombs that echo Shilla's souls, Cheomseongdae Astronomical Observatory, one of the oldest observatories in Asia, shows the intellect and sophistication of the Silla people. And further afield, Bulguksa Temple is considered a masterpiece of Buddhist architecture. Home to national treasures including Tabutap and Seokgatap, the two pagodas, this World Heritage Site hints at the religious and artistic aspects of the ancient Silla capital. And those looking for a deeper understanding can visit the Gyeongju National Museum and have a peek at the Golden Crown from Kumgonchong Tomb. From ancient relics to cultural landmarks throughout the city, Gyeongju stands as a living monument for Korea's rich cultural heritage, an open-air museum where Silla's 1,000 years of history still breathes. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Gyeongju.
And actor Park Bo-gum has been appointed as an honorary ambassador for Korean tourism. On Tuesday, the Culture Ministry unveiled 2 promotional videos featuring Park, including the campaign's theme song On My Way, sung by the actor himself. A preview event for the new global campaign was also held the same day, introducing themed videos supporting tourism in regions such as Gyeongsang-do provinces, highlighting Gyeongju, the host city of the upcoming APEC 2025 Korea.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged that the crisis in Gaza has reached a point of real starvation and vowed to build food centers in the enclave. Speaking during a visit to Scotland on Monday, Trump said visual evidence convinced him that starvation in Gaza is real and pledged the creation of U.S.-backed food centers in coordination with European partners. Trump emphasized that the current aid infrastructure is deeply flawed, adding the U.S. would work with other countries to establish food centers without entry barriers, allowing civilians to access aid freely. According to the White House, additional details on the plan are forthcoming. Trump's remarks are in stark contrast with those of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has denied that Gaza is facing starvation, saying Israel continues to allow significant amounts of humanitarian aid into the enclave. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire starting Monday midnight local time, following 5 days of border clashes that killed nearly 40 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. This follows negotiations in Malaysia headed by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. At a joint press conference with acting Thai Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, Anwar outlined the step-by-step de-escalation process of the conflict. He also stated that a broader border committee session is scheduled for August 4th in Cambodia to address long-standing territorial issues. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he had phoned the leaders of both countries and celebrated the outcome, calling himself the President of Peace. In Africa, the UN reported on Monday that the attack on a Catholic church in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday was done by a group linked to the Islamic State. At least 43 churchgoers were killed when armed fighters from the Allied Democratic Forces, a group affiliated with IS, entered the church in the town of Komanda in the Ituri province. The attackers also set fire to nearby homes and shops. Over 20 victims were buried in a mass grave on Monday. MONUSCO, the UN peacekeeping mission in the region, condemned the attack as revolting. Pope Leo XIV also denounced the deadly attack, expressing sorrow and describing the victims as martyrs. Disney has released the first official trailer for Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third installment in James Cameron's epic sci-fi saga, on Monday. The trailer debuted exclusively in theaters alongside Marvel's The Fantastic Four: First Steps and is now available online. It encompasses the visionary land, sea, and air worlds of Pandora at their most dramatic, and also unveils the Ash Clan, a tribe that inhabits volcanic regions. Reviews praise the trailer as a huge level up in action, world building, and emotional depth. The movie is set to open in theaters in December. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
The steaming heat is making us afraid to go outside. With the heat wave warnings continuing today, the daytime temperature rose above 36 degrees Celsius in most regions, and the heat will be raging. For the time being, the heat will continue day and night. As the heat has been continuing for a long time, special attention should be paid to health care. Meanwhile, sea waves will be very high, up to 4.5 meters in the southern seas. There will be high swells around coastal areas of Jeju Island and the southern coast. Please take extra precautions when on the beach during the summer vacation. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 27 degrees, Gyeongju at 24 degrees. Daily highs will go up to around 35 to 36 degrees in most parts of the country. There are showers forecast only in the central and northern parts of Gangwon-do province tomorrow. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session.